Leaders and healers, gamers and claimers, ladies and gentlemen from around the universe, from around the globe, from around the community. Welcome to the Power, Purpose, and Passion podcast. I am your host, Anthony Cheam, speaker, life coach, trainer, friend to you, musician, singer, songwriter, just podcast facilitator and podcast host. Not really facilitator because Cam is that facilitator over there. He's facilitating this whole thing. I'm technologically inept, so he's helping me. He's helping me take this podcast to the next level, and the whole team along the way. So thank you for joining us on this podcast. This is a podcast where we help you claim your power, clarify your purpose, and cultivate your deepest, widest, and highest passions possible, so you can ultimately show up as a better, best, more wise, and loving version of yourself, upgrading and updating yourself on a consistent basis. So ultimately you can inspire others to do the same through your example, through your love, through your compassion, through your courage. So thank you for joining us on a daily, weekly basis, wherever you are listening to this actively or passively. We are so grateful that you are joining this. If you're listening to this in your car, at home, working out, whatever it is, whether there's one person or 10 million people listening to this, we are here about making the world a better place through this podcast. So thank you for joining us. Cam, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing very good now. As you know, you and I just before this talked about something that has happened in my life, which is boredom. And it's funny how I just had a quick, 6-hour spurt of boredom, and I was just so hard on myself. And you reminded me that sometimes, and I hope, for whoever needs to hear this right now hears it, it's okay to do nothing.
It's okay.
Sometimes.
Yes.
Let's not get carried away here. But doing nothing is a very important part of life. And by nothing, it means the illusion that you need to grow constantly. Sometimes there's an expansion and a contraction, and then another expansion, and then another contraction. Look at the waves. There's an undertow. So you reminded me that definitely gave me a lot of perspective in my own life. Yeah. So. Yeah. Public thank you to Anthony Cheam.
That's what I do.
Let's get right into this episode.
Well, I just want to add to that too there, Cam, that I've certainly grown from being, better yet, let me just kind of preface it with this. You got to balance action with non-action. So when you're taking action, yes, take action, yes, exercise, yes, make plans, yes, breakthrough, yes, contemplate, but ultimately it's what you do when you're not taking action, like prayer and meditation, when you're letting go. It's really, in reality, in meditation, what you're doing is letting go of this false self, this lower self, so the higher self can take over. And it's not the lower self that's doing the rearranging. It's the higher self that's working wonders and miracles and changing the neurological patterns in your brain. It's not you that's doing it. You're stepping aside and allowing a greater power, love, divine energy, whatever you want to call it, God, reality, supreme being, whatever you want to call it, whatever religious or spiritual beliefs are. But that you got to balance action with non-action, with doing, with being. So you're doing, being. When you're sleeping for 6 to 8, 9 hours a day, what action are you taking when you're sleeping? It's you're not in the driver's seat, right? So you got to balance. Yeah, right. You have to let go. And all of a sudden, when you go from wakefulness to dreaming, you no longer have a physical body. You now have a subtle body, and then you go from a subtle body to a causal body, your third body, and then you go from a causal body to a witnessing body, and then to a unity body. So anyways, I'm not going to get into that. That's for another podcast. But the point of the matter is, we have to balance action with non-action, and I have to be reminded of that because for the Enneagram people, there are 9 types of personalities, and I am definitely an Enneagram helper and achiever. Sometimes they kind of 1 and 2. Go helper, achiever, helper, but they're both coincide with each other. But the other side of being a helper and achiever is that I got to keep going and going, helping. If I'm not achieving or growing or contributing or helping somebody or rescuing somebody, then I feel like, oh my gosh, I sort of lose my identity and then go, oh my God, if I'm not helping someone, if I'm not rescuing someone, if I'm not growing or learning something, then I'm nothing. And that's scary that's the unhealthy part. But I have learned that through my own therapy, through my own spiritual direction, that it's going into diving into the depths of your loneliness, of your boredom. That's when, honestly, that diving into your loneliness, into your frustrations, and sitting there with them for a few minutes. It is agony for achievers and helpers. It's to sit there and just be with your boredom, sit there and be with your loneliness. That's hard to do because we just immediately want to take action and keep ourselves busy. But what I've learned in my 40 years of being on this planet and through my own experience of life, that it's okay to sit with those things and contemplate those things. So today's episode is all about standing up for what you believe in. And this is big. I honestly, I truly, there's not enough people out there who just get up and say, no, I will not do that. Or, I remember hearing Wayne Dyer in one interview, he said, we're manufacturing nuclear weapons and all these things, and all it takes is one person in the creation and manufacturing and the delivering of all those weapons to say, no, I will not make napalm. I will not make the atom bomb. I will not make weapons of mass destruction. I will not do that. That's not aligned with my values. So I will not do that. And for them to walk away, take a look at, Colin Kaepernick he's formerly the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. He decided, I am not going to stand up for the national anthem during the game or before the game. I'm going to kneel to express my my protest for the racial discrimination that's happening in our society. And he decided to kneel. And then that one thing, I think he sat down, and it caused a ripple effect. And he won just recently in court against the NFL. I'm not much sure how much money he won or whatever it is. But the point is he won, and all these players started to back him up. It took one person to do that. Colin Kaepernick, much respect to that guy for doing that. And now it's created this huge, crazy storm of equality, of making it aware that there's still racial discrimination and prejudice going on in our society. So that takes one person. I want to read you something from the book I introduced yesterday to you, The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. And I'm going to give you two examples. The first example is this. Okay. It'll take like 1-2 minutes to do this. In 2008, the Taliban took control of the Swat Valley, a remote part of northeastern Pakistan. They quickly implemented their Muslim extremist agenda: no television, no films, no women outside the house without a male escort, no girls attending school. By 2009, an 11-year-old Pakistani girl named Malala Yousafzai had begun, forgive me if I'm not pronouncing it right, had begun to speak out against the school ban. She continued to attend her local school, risking both her and her father's lives. She also attended conferences in nearby cities. She wrote online, "How dare the Taliban take away my right for education?" An 11-year-old girl, 11. In 2012, at the age of 14, she was shot in the face as she rode the bus from school one day. A masked Taliban soldier armed with a rifle boarded the bus and asked, "Who is Malala? Tell me or I will shoot everyone here." Malala identified herself, an amazing choice and of itself. And the man shot her in the head in front of all the other passengers. Malala went into a coma and almost died. The Taliban stated publicly that if she somehow survived the attempt, they would kill both her and her father. Today, Malala is still alive. She still speaks out against violence and oppression toward women in Muslim countries. Now, as a best-selling author, in 2014, she received the Nobel Peace Prize for her efforts. Bam! That's all. We can literally end that show right now, because, man, that girl inspires me. That's how revolution starts. Isn't that absolutely, like, I get literally goosebumps, like reading that. Like, when I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? One person, and it created a revolution. Who knows out there, Rosa Parks goes onto a bus, right? And says, a white person says, "Hey, listen, you go to the back of the bus." And she says, "No, I will not go to the back of the bus. My feet hurt." And she ended up sitting there, and it created this crazy storm in the media. And you imagine that was done today, in today's world, with Instagram and Facebook and Twitch and all these things, that ripple effect would happen that much faster. It would just create a, like, oh my gosh, earthquake of epic proportions in the consciousness of man and mankind. So those are two examples. Colin Kaepernick's a third example. The other one is Nelson Mandela. I mean, he sat in a prison for 27 hours in absolute silence, boredom, isolation, condemnation. Years. 27 years. Can you imagine?
You said 27 hours.
Oh, sorry, 27 hours. Sorry, 27 hours. My bad. 27 hours, years, almost 30 years, 3 decades of his life sitting in isolation, boredom, completely isolated. And actually, they gave him many chances to escape, but with stipulations, he said no. And he created, one person decided to do that, to stand up for what they believe in, and revolutions are created. Let me tell you something. Cameron is probably gonna add to this. I mean, he's a vegan. He's straight up vegan. He's an environmentalist. He's a animal activist. An environmental activist. He's an amazing human being. I stand up for what I believe in too, which is why I speak so passionately about power, purpose, and passion. Claiming your power, clarifying your purpose, and cultivating your deepest passion. You were brought here for something. Stand up. Reevaluate, re-examine who you are, re-examine your values, and live it with total power, purpose, and passion. That's what this particular podcast is all about. So anyways, I'll give it over to Cam so he can kind of share with you sort of his his view of standing up for what he believes in and through veganism and being an environmentalist. So go ahead there, my friend. Take the mic.
Yeah, no, even as you were saying that, it's kind of crazy. Like, I'm sure other people at home were probably feeling this, like this very intense, like, yeah, she stood up, like this girl who stood up for what was right, you know? And you see it in movies. Like, sometimes the main plot is just this person standing up for what's right. And it's like something that we all identify in our hearts. Like this idea of pushing through those barriers and like really doing that. It's just very emotionally dense. That was awesome. But what I wanted to mention is just in my own life, I remember in high school, like when I first started really like caring about the environment and really like just being exposed to the information that is hidden underneath our noses, everyone. And when I realized this, I decided to present it in class, actually, in high school. Wow. And yeah, it stirred a lot of stuff, man. People were not happy with it because but that's the way it starts. Just like how Rosa Parks stood up in the back of the bus, just like how for a lot of society was okay with slavery. A lot of society. And like it took a literal civil war to finally, you know, and even just less than 100 years ago, I'm not sure exactly what year it was when women could finally vote. It took a very long time. And I'm like less than 20 years ago, gay marriage was illegal in the US, at least. I'm not sure about Canada, but it's just crazy how we're still not perfect here. That's for sure. And I would say the hardest thing for me anyways is the fact that I'm standing up for something that offends people. Like people get offended because it's 98% of the population. So I'm the 2% who's standing up, and you know, like if somebody was to ask, I would say like, yeah, I'm vegan because animals don't deserve to be slaughtered like that. I'm vegan because we brought them into existence just to slaughter them and to, you know, enslave them and just like keep them in a cage for their entire life. And people don't like that answer. They're like, oh, I just wanted to know how it was or if it's healthy. And then they get all defensive. And I'm like, listen, I'm just being totally honest. And it definitely makes me very unpopular. It makes me like appear as a not nice person, but I'm not gonna sit back and say it's not that bad. It is more beings are dying than during the Holocaust. And even saying that, a lot of people are like, what are you doing comparing it to the Holocaust? That's insane. But there are literal Holocaust survivors who are now animal activists. Go figure. And not to mention the concentration camps were previously slaughterhouses for animals. So it is a direct like disconnect because they're not human, right? They're not Jewish human beings. They are just there's that like they're animals. They have hooves, they have feathers, they have beaks. It's not a big deal. But they have 2 feet and a heartbeat most of the time. If they're fish, they just got a heartbeat, 2 fins. But it's like, you know, when it comes to standing up for what's right, it is difficult for me. But going to home or going to bed at night, thinking about your day, knowing that you were absolutely honest, is just like, it feels nice. And not to mention, there's this yearly film talking about the news and the veganism movement, and it's amazing. Every year I watch it and I sit down and I'm like, it's getting better and better. Plant alternatives are getting yummier and yummier. The companies are just like, this is the next movement. Time, like right now, you know, women were fighting for their rights, gays were fighting for their rights. Now it's us humans having to fight for animal rights because they can't fight for their own rights. They don't have a voice. I know there's actually a person who took a vow of silence for like 23 years and he still hasn't spoken, probably longer than that. Just like, that's a person standing up for what's right. An absolute, like, I haven't spoken a word in 23 years or over 20 years because they don't have a voice. And so I'm sort of like making a point here. I know there was this one guy who took an entire year to to not speak, and then the first words he spoke were on live television. And it's like, it's actually the most emotional thing ever. Like, his voice is so like weak and stuff because he hasn't spoken a word in a year, but he's talking about why he's doing it, and it's so like heartbreaking to see like the emotion there. It's just amazing that that still to this day, if you think that you don't need to stand up for what you believe in, like, there still are issues in our society that we can all stand up for today. Yeah, it's not like we're not perfect. A lot of people don't think they need to stand up because, oh, we're fine. But there's a lot going on, even just underneath our noses. And, you know, people are speaking up for like sex trafficking and all sorts of things that you don't really, not many people, it's not a popular thing, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, no, I just wanted to mention that because even just myself, day to day, man, I'm immersed in a world that is doing the very thing that breaks my heart every now and then. I don't let it break my heart because it's what can I do? You know, that's the other thing. Like, I was going to ask you, like, what would you suggest to someone who is sort of in a similar position to mine, where 98% of human beings around you are doing the total opposite of what you believe is right? Yeah. How do you not get a broken heart from that? How do you not, you know?
I agree. I think it comes down to, I'd rather be loathed for who I am and loved for who I'm not. Like, I'd rather honor my own authenticity and my own authentic path, and honor my beliefs and what I believe in. And if it means losing some friends or losing a popularity contest, I mean, let's face it. Take a guy like Jesus, right? Who had, you know, only a dozen followers, and he was crucified for doing what? Like, come on, it was ridiculous. His friends betrayed him. Everyone left him. Yet he had nothing but love in his heart for humanity, for all of the world, and had nothing but forgiveness and a bountiful wisdom that wasn't heard before his time, in the ways of his words anyway. And I think we have to you've got to reach a point in your own identity, start to question your own identity, believe about who you are and what you're going to stand up for, and what you're going to stand up for, and what you're going to let slide. And really get down and dirty into your gut, into your heart of hearts, and go, I will not stand for this anymore. I will not do this. If you are someone who grew up in an ethnic family, who they have certain expectations of you, as an example, they say you've got to be a doctor, and they push you to be a doctor, and you spend your whole life become a doctor, and you know from your heart of hearts that's not what you want to do with the rest of your life, then at some point you got to say, you know what, I'm going to lose my family perhaps, or the love of my family perhaps, but I gotta honor my path, my purpose, and have the courage to stand up for that. And that's not easy, because love and connection, that need for love and connection is so strong that a lot of people will dismiss and give up their dreams and their heart's calling to appease other people. But then you die with what? The music's still in you. You die with that song in you. You die with that poem. And the world needs more people to live authentically and genuinely, and people that are willing to take action despite of the fear, despite of what other people are going to think. I mean, for the longest time, and I'm not saying I'm the epitome of this, but for the longest time, I cared what people thought about my music and my singing and how I looked. And, oh my gosh, what if they say this, or what if they write this about me, or what if they judge me, or what if they do that, or what if I'm not good enough? And I'd said, you know what? This is what I believe in. I'm going to speak my truth from my heart of hearts. I'm going to speak it. I'm going to live it. I'm going to breathe it, and I'm going to inspire people, and I'm going to be a source of inspiration, and I'm going to live it. I'm going to breathe it. I'm going to give it as much as I can. And I'm continuing to learn that. I'm continuing to expand on that. But knowing who you are and what you believe in, fight for it, literally. And fight is such a, it means you got to fight for something. But that girl Malala, who stood up, let me tell you something. She inspired a movement of people around the world, women coming up and saying, no, this is wrong. An 11-year-old girl, my daughter's 9, she's turning 10 in May. Like, that's only a year and a bit older than my daughter. Like, that is absolutely, so regardless of age, regardless of sex or creed, or how old you are, or how small you are, fat you are, skinny you are, blonde or brunette, it doesn't matter. This girl's an 11-year-old girl living in a country where they oppress women. And she was 11, and she said, no, they're going to ban school. They can't do that. And I'm going to still go to school. like that is absolutely crazy. She won the Nobel Peace Prize. That is extraordinary. And all it took is one person to say no and to take action in that direction for what's right, for what she believed in. And let me tell you, she was aligned. She is aligned. And she lived it and breathed it with every part of her. She was not superhuman. She was an 11-year-old girl with no rights, yet she still said no. And oftentimes it just says no. If you're addicted to a drug or alcohol or something like, or food, whatever it is, all it takes is you stand up and say, no, I will not be a slave to this addiction anymore. I will get help. I will stand up because I value my life, love, and giving more than this addiction here. So that's it. I'm done with drinking. I'm done with overeating. I'm done with destroying myself and sabotaging my own happiness and success. That's enough. And that's when I have to literally get angry. Sometimes anger can be a resource in times of frustration. You need to use that anger to make a transformation, make an upgrade. That's oftentimes the impetus to make a transformation in your life. So anyway, so I hope we hope this. I really enjoyed this podcast there, Cam. I mean, I'm standing up for what I believe in. I love reading these stories. Yeah,
this was a different one for sure.
Yeah,
but yeah, I love the idea that we're just talking about what comes up and what we feel right now. You know, like you're currently reading that book, and I find it awesome that as a student of that book, it inspired you to start talking about this kind of stuff. So I think it's great.
Oh yeah. Awesome. Awesome. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, leaders and healers, gamers and claimers, if you love this podcast, join, ask questions. You know, whether you support it or not, just even if you're just listening, you don't have to comment or ask questions. Share it with somebody that you really care about, and hopefully these podcasts are making little small upgrades in your life and in your psyche and in your spirit, so you can transform the world in your own unique way. Whether it be through your work or at your community or at home. It doesn't matter as long as you're showing up as just a little bit better than who you used to be. And hopefully this podcast is supporting that growth and expansion and upgrade. So to your continued upgrade and evolution, live it up with power, purpose, and passion. God bless, guys.